So welcome, Joe. Thank you so much for doing this. This is fantastic. So I wonder if you could begin by describing how and when printmaking became your medium of choice and how it works within your larger body of work.
Usually when I'm talking about this, you can see like flashbacks to my early work and things. But I started printmaking at the Wenatchee Valley College with Robert Graves. And that was in '71 that I first started college. I stayed at Wenatchee for quite a while. I had these aspirations of becoming a dam worker on a hydro plant. And I took 7-year hiatus to finish my second year at Wenatchee and to decide that I really didn't want to work on a hydro plant, that being an artist is what I really wanted to do. And it's a struggle because those positions at the hydro plants are highly sought after. And but when I was 26 years old, I realized that I had 23 years before I could retire, and I decided that was way too long to wait to do what I wanted to do. So I cashed in my retirement, and I went to University of Washington, where Glenn Alps was one of my faculty, and it was a lot of Glenn's influence that stayed with me throughout my career as an artist and as a printmaker. He taught printmaking there. He was the lead printmaking artist. But when people asked me, they asked me what Glenn taught me. It was really about thinking about your art and about yourself and about your own responsibility to your creation of artwork. He would usually start his programs with a lecture about independent freedom and how you have your control of your own destination. And he rarely talked about this is the best print you make. He would talk about how this fit what you were thinking about and your own direction. He also talked about the power of color and how important your choice of color and how you use it is. The other major influence at the University of Washington was Vi Hilbert, and Vi she was a language teacher for Salish language and a storyteller. And she always told me that, Joe, you're a storyteller. But I would never really believe her because I'm pretty reclusive and shy person, and being up in front of a lot of people is something I don't usually do by choice. But we developed friendships that lasted for years and years, and and Glenn also. I asked Glenn to come and talk to my program when I was teaching at Evergreen, and he had a new talk that he was working on, and his talk was about breathing naturally. And it was about how people and their work develop, and he correlated it to going to a hospital or a clinic, and they ask you to take a deep breath and inhale and exhale, and then he said that they ask them to, after you finish that, to breathe naturally. And he related that to how people produce art, and that it should be a natural extension of what you're doing. And I think about it in terms of my own work, that the things I love doing are the things that are around me, the things that are important to me at the moment, and how I relate to just my surroundings and the events that are going on. And I think that if we do that well, and that if we do it like a story that often the stories that we have in Native culture are open-ended, and there's no right or wrong interpretation. And Vi would say that anything you get out of it is really important. that there's no, what do you call it? There's no like special meaning. It's the meaning that you derive from it is really important. And I think that if my work is successful, it translates that so that there is multiple meanings derived from the work. And I think I probably went off with the question. When I look at my work and how I think about printmaking, it's in those contexts because I think of it as a way of expression and like a way of storytelling, that when you do this, I mean, there is obviously an intent, but if it's open and it has a way to other people to access the work, I think it's all that much better, richer. So, I don't know, did I answer the question?
I think so. I think so. And I think one of the things that you were getting towards was the issue of that sort of breathing being an expression. I think that's a beautiful metaphor for like that artistic expression. And you have developed a very distinctive sort of set of visual references that you use in your art. And I wonder if you could speak to how you started to develop that and how it relates both to your traditions, but moving towards how it becomes important as a contemporary expression as well.
When I think about the icons that I use, it's really hard to think about it over like a long period of span of time. But I've always been fascinated by the landscape, and I think that the landscape and what's around me has always been important. In the early 80s, when I was living in Seattle, I did these pieces that were called rainscape pieces. And they were about this, well, everybody knows Seattle has a lot of rain, but they were about the light and about the movement. And they were also about printmaking. They were about those pieces used wood blocks, intaglio processes. They were monoprints, and a lot of them were chincolets. So they had a multitude of media incorporated into these works. They were kind of like drawings that were layered and built up through the layering. And the layering processes were innate to printmaking processes. When I came back from Madison, I kind of struggled in Madison, and I was working through kind of a new direction. As an artist, sometimes you find yourself faltering. And I remember in Madison, I was working on these kind of self-portrait images that were derived from self-portraits that I did earlier, and they were more silhouette kind of pieces. And when I went to Evergreen to teach, I wanted to do pieces that were from home, about the inland plateau area. And I wanted to do things that celebrated printmaking, because I know all of these mediums, and I wanted to develop this work. And what I started was a suite of work called Plateau Geometrics, and they were based really loosely on basket designs and the kind of the ambiguity of some of the designs, and the prints were geometric, and they used like aqua tints, relief prints, monoprints, photography, and all of the mediums that were incorporated and layered and brought into kind of like the collation of these prints that were just based on abstract designs from the plateau area. And when I worked on that for quite a while, I decided that maybe I should learn how to make baskets, because I was referencing the basket work, and things worked out really well, because Lizzie was just learning how to make baskets, And so Elizabeth Woody, she's a really noted Northwest poet and a dear friend of mine. She taught me how to make these Sally bags and root bags. And I was thinking the other day that it seems so, such a brief time, but it was almost 20 years ago or 25 years ago that I've been making these baskets. And when I started making the baskets, I was going through this process that I think everybody goes through. When you're referencing something, do you mimic it or do you reinterpret it? And I chose to, instead of like remake things that were already made, I decided that I should make up my own designs and reference things that were around me. And from that, they came kind of whimsical too. Vi always said, "Joe, I didn't know you were so humorous." But she said, when she was looking at some of my baskets, and I'm going to show a basket. This is one that I reinterpreted this last year. This piece is one of the baskets I made. This one would be like a Sally bag, and this is highway with HOV lane. So you can see the HOV lanes in the middle, and I like the way that it mimics like a traditional design, and that it's the shape of the traditional basket, the root bag, but it has this kind of a more urban kind of design on it that you don't know until you realize what it's called.
So the making of the baskets becomes as important as the prints for you to evolve your ideas.
Yeah, because you'll when you're looking at the prints, you would see oftentimes a layer that's in some of the prints. Some of the Okanagan pieces have more urban designs in the background, and I think Okanagan 5 has it has some tire tracks, because these baskets, I made a suite for the show at the Smithsonian in New York, where they had a highway with HOV, they had a high voltage tower, a parking lot, and they had a tire design, and I think there was a couple more. But when I looked at the tire design, which was like a stereotypical tire design, I thought that would be a good source material for newer works that reference, the commercial world. And the tire tracks for SUVs have fantastic names like Winter Force, Open Country, and Eagle. And Okanagan 5 has an Eagle tire track design in the background with a wilderness when behind it. So these names that of the tire tracks, which have these kind of like romanticized visions of the West, become part of the pattern design in the prints.
The names you're referring to for the tire designs, those are given by the actual tire companies. Those weren't given by you.
Yeah, they're the tire. Did I put somebody to sleep? I'm hearing this like.
Unfortunately the elevator is not very far, and if that's the lifting, sorry.
I thought, oh, I put somebody to sleep.
They're already snoring.
And I can hear them. What? This one has, I think this one is called Bighorn.
The tire tread design.
Tire tread design.
If you could lift it up just a little bit higher.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's great. And what are you weaving those out of?
I'm weaving them out of waxed linen, and I do that because I would make these when I was doing when you have conferences and things, and you have meetings and something to work, and also the kind of wet materials aren't very good on my hands, make it unique. But what I wanted to talk about was how that these ideas, they go and they flow in and out of all of the work. And so I was checking my time. So I have about 10 minutes left.
A little over, yes.
So maybe we could talk about what I'm doing now.
I think the students would be interested in that. Yes, they're nodding. Yes.
Okay. So my work flows, from one thing to the next all of the time, and it's usually about myself, and it's about where I'm from. And when I think about coming home, I always think that of what my grandmother always said to us, that you need to be here. We were off, and she would plead with us to come home as Native people, that we're needed here, that our people need us, and that's why I am home. I am back with my people, and I work in OMAC, but I work in this other world a lot of times, and it creates these things that are about things that are going on around me. Right now, our world is really interwoven with the present. And when I was asked to do Charmed, they wanted me to do a piece that was about hybrid culture. And if you handed out the Charmed piece, right?
That's in the handout that you guys have. There's a photo of it.
Charmed is a piece I made for the Sun Valley Art Museum, or Sun Valley Center for the Arts. And I made it about 2 or 3 years ago. And they wanted me to do something about hybrid culture. And I decided that I wanted to do something that was maybe like a petroglyph on the wall, a wind chime, and I was trying to think, there's one more thing. It was incorporating these kind of 3 things into one thing. And what I did was I made it out of glass. And I made a charm bracelet. So I wanted to deal with the idea of hybrid culture, and it ended up dealing with it through this idea of this curtain. And the curtain was all made up of charms. And this is one of the pieces from the Charmed curtain. It's a little deer fellow. And when you called in earlier, I was trying to grab some charms that were laying around the house so I could show you some of these. And these were made to be strung up in this curtain, and they were meant to clink like a chandelier. So when the wind would hit them, they would do this. And if you're looking at the image of Charmed, you'll realize that the background, the shadows, become the petroglyphs. And so this whole piece that was called Charms has like, I don't know, a few hundred of these, and it makes that beautiful sound when the wind hits it. Or I asked them to put fans on it so that it'll give that kind of tinkling sound like a chandelier. This is another one of the pieces.
Can you lift that one higher too?
And
it's a boat. Is it a boat figure?
What kind of canoe with little figures in it? Right. And Melanie Yazzie asked me to do this print for a print exchange that she was doing that was coming from here to there. And I thought, wow, this will work really well. And I drew around that, and I brought it, I made this print for, oops.
There, that's great, right there.
Out of the stencil from tracing around one of the glass pieces. And it was, I thought that kind of relates to what we're doing. And it has a lot of stories behind it. It looks like, like when you're looking at this piece, it has a story about people going together, and journey. And it also reminded me of this other journey. I have a friend from New Zealand, Carl, and Carl is a weaver, and he was over in he was visiting, and he was over near the Mississippi area, and they went on a canoe ride, 3 of them, and their canoe tipped over, and this basket that Carl was working on fell out of their canoe and is in the Mississippi now. I told Carl that this was a piece that was for them to commemorate his loss of this basket. Oh. And it really goes like this. So it has a multiple of meanings for works. In the handouts that I gave you a piece that was called Charmed, and there were there was like monoprints in the background, and there was spray paint on the front. And those were the first ones when I'd really did the Charmed exhibit. I'd meant for it to be worked with a large installation piece with a series of prints around it that were monoprints derived from the piece. And I could never get the prints to work as I wanted them to. And I let the prints stay around my studio for quite a while. And it was these prints that were, I think you can see them, that were, they have like the Charmed series, and they have spray paint on them. I decided that I didn't like the work and that I should hand color them. And then I thought about the graffiti and the way that that's all in this culture, and I thought I should add elements that were more fresher, and I really enjoyed the way that the kind of like the hands-on spray painting them and the monoprints together on those pieces. And I think you got one that was kind of like red deer or something.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't have it in front of me, but there was red deer and there was another one. Charmed 2-point, probably that deer.
So those were those coming together, and those were shown later, I think. Yes, those are being shown right now in New York at the Center for the Print. This collector in Oregon bought them all. And that kind of added another element into what I was thinking about. So right now, what I'm working on is a series of prints that are using the canoes and the kind of the multiple medium kind of referencing of blind embosses and overprinting to create a piece called a canoe journey, and where they are, I don't know if you can see, can you see that blue? There's a blue print on the wall behind me.
Yes.
Can you see that?
Yes.
That's one of the, from that new suite of work that will be shown at the Frolic Gallery this fall. It'll be called Canoe Journey.
And are those, sorry, are those other figures in there also from the Charmed shape?
The Charmed shapes are referenced, but they're new ones. And what I'm working on now is also making a suite of works that go with that piece. And I'm still working on these. And these are ceramic pieces. So they're of the figures, and they'll go with that exhibit. This is not glazed or anything yet. This will be with that show for Charles in the fall in Portland.
That one head with is that a parking lot head?
Yeah, it's a parking lot head.
So everything comes around.
Yeah, so it's, I don't know, I look at it, I think it's very whimsical, and it's about, I don't know, it's about what's around me, Our land is more complex than it was a long time ago, and we have parking lots, and we have on the hill crest around Omak, we have high voltage towers. This is a basket with like high voltage towers around it.
And then those voltage towers are also in that print on the same wall.
Yeah, there's one over the other side.
Towers. And what are the other designs? There's a parking lot is in there, and what else is there?
You can see this design here,
Uh-huh.
a butterfly design. Sometimes people call it a vertebrae design. You can see this parking lot design in it. This is a pit house design, these rectangles here. And where I'm from, we really don't have teepees. Usually the housing is more like a pit house. So it's kind of, and we would have truly mat lodges and not really teepees. Today in our rodeos, they always have like canvas teepees. They are bringing back some tule lodges, and you can see them little ones once in a while at the campments.
Those same rectangles are in Wyatt View, aren't they?
In Wyatt View, you would see this is like a mountain design.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and the rectangles are in Wyatt View too.
So all these things are still related in a manner.
Yes, they're.
We're getting ready to run out. I'm sorry, go ahead.
On these, I was really wanting to, work on some of these, incorporating some of the more urban designs. But I was also interested in if people knew what the designs meant, they would surface in their minds and become kind of a language that they could see. But not everybody that doesn't know what they mean would actually see them.
Mm.
Okay, I think I used up all my time. I don't know. Is there anything else to close with?
Yes, Jackson is trying to get a question to me. Go ahead. Jackson would like to know what printing processes you used in that print you just showed.
The print that I just showed you is, they call it a suicide print or a color reduction print. So you print one color, and then you cut out, and then you print another color on top of it.
So you used a single block to print that?
That's right.
Okay. Anyone else have questions? Well, I think they're all sitting here, just, I think, can see the smoke coming out of their ears. I think they're thinking about what you said. And that's the end of our time. Just one last call. Does anybody have questions? I don't want to take away the opportunity. One of the students asked how long you might spend on a piece.
That's really hard to answer. When I'm starting like a basket like this, I take a deep breath and I realize that this will take anywhere from 3 to 6 months working on it pretty steady. And when I'm working on printmaking, or when I made like Charmed, the large glass piece, that's a good 6 months to 9 months of constant, constant work on it. So some things that you take a deep breath and you realize that the outcome is going to be quite a while from now. When I first started making baskets, I had to have them finished that day, and they were very small. They were like this big, and you would start them and finish them really quickly. And now I tend to just take a deep breath and realize it takes as long as it takes. And that's true for the printmaking. When I started those prints that I ended up spray painting 6 months later, you start them with a general idea, and I was stuck for a while, and I would have them around, but it took me 6 months to a year to decide how to finish the pieces, finish the work, and to go on. So I think the most important thing is that when you're finished, that you have them ready. And as I'm working with a friend of mine doing the ceramics, and I was talking to him about, we just glazed a piece, and he's going to fire it for me. And I said, a lot of times when I did ceramics when I was like 18, people would do the piece, they'd paint it, and they'd fire it, and they'd be finished. And I was telling him that this doesn't, just because we're firing this piece, doesn't mean it's going to be finished. That we will look at it and see what it's like then. And if I need to add another glaze layer, if we need to do something else, then we'll approach it and we'll work on it till it's done. Just because it's like printed or gone through this process, it's not really finished until you have it in your mind that it's a complete in itself. So the completion can be very soon, or it could take years. Okay?
That was good. I think we're out of time. Don't want to keep, I know the classes to bring the students, but I'm going to turn the camera around so you can see everybody. Can you guys join me in thanking Joe?